It is somehow that time again, and I am doing another monthly reading wrap up, this time for March. I had a great March. I read some very diverse novels and read them in different formats as well, which is always a really great time. Also, if you cannot tell, Eowyn is being a huge ham right now. Yes, it's time for your monthly reading wrap up, Eowyn. How many books did you read? Anyway, to start off the month of March, I actually picked up volume 8 of Lore Olympus. I did have a fun time revisiting these characters. I love all of the characters in this book, but this I think has been my least favorite volume out of all of them so far. I rated it 3 stars just because it felt very rushed and also scatterbrained at points. I really liked like the last 100 pages of it or so. It kind of went back to its roots and felt a lot more like the others had. But the first half of this one was just not it for me. It jumped way too quickly between scenes. I couldn't really get into it very much, and I also forgot who some of the characters were, so that didn't help anything. But all in all, I still love this series so much, and I cannot wait to eventually get to volume 9. Hopefully it is going to be slightly better than this one. I always say this when I talk about Lore Olympus, but seriously, if you are at all into Greek mythology and romance and graphic novels, you should definitely give this one a try because it is a lot of fun and very, very beautifully illustrated. Next, I listened to the audiobook for 12 Years a Slave by Solomon Northup. This book is old. It is from the 1800s, but it is written in a way that feels very modern and it was easy to get into and understand. I always am very weary around classics. I don't know, I just feel too stupid to read them sometimes, but my hair? It's your hair now? Okay. Anyway. Oh my, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're a goose. This one was very, very easy to read or listen to as far as the writing style went. The content, however, it was very difficult to listen to. It is absolutely tragic what Solomon Northup and some of the people he knew and talks about in this book went through. I obviously can't put it into words, but I highly recommend this book for honestly everybody. It is a very hard read, but I do think it's one of those ones that's important as well. Very important, actually. And everyone would be able to get something out of it. I also highly recommend the audiobook. The narrator did a phenomenal job at bringing Solomon's story to life and really giving it even more depth and emotion. I don't know, it was amazingly done. I'm not going to rate this one. I don't rate memoirs, and I would feel very wrong rating this because it is someone's life experience that I have no right to rate, honestly. But I will once again repeat that I highly recommend it, and there is a lot to be learned from memoirs such as this one. Next, I continued on with the Joe Goldberg series with the 3rd installment, You Love Me, and I really enjoyed this one. I actually liked it more than the second one, and I also loved how the book at this point really took a different direction from the TV series. Season 3 was where it kind of started losing me for the Netflix series, but this book actually kind of started bringing me back into it. The characters in this one were super interesting and really well fleshed out. The twists were twisty, and I did not even guess all of them, which was wild for me. And then Joe Goldberg is his creepiest self, if that is even possible. Such a disturbing mind to be in. I did end up rating this one 4 stars. It was really good. I just can't rate it 5 stars because the first one was 5 stars and this one is still not as good as that one. But I did really enjoy it. And if you like the TV series for you or you really like creepy thrillers, highly recommend these as well. They're very bingeable. Then I read the arc for Hot Girl Murder Club by Ashley Winstead. This one was a lot of fun, but I was not a huge fan of the writing style, so I did end up rating it 3 stars. There was just a lot of different point of views, and then the timeline jumped constantly. It was too much for me. I definitely think I could have gotten more into it had there been less point of views. I understand the timeline jumping. It was really needed for this kind of plot. I just wish that there wasn't so many people telling the story. It also bothered me how when we changed point of views, it changed from first person person to third person back to first person. I really just wish Ashley Winstead would have picked a perspective and stuck with it. But the story itself was really good, a lot of fun. It was a thriller slash murder mystery surrounding rich Hollywood people. So you definitely got an interesting cast of characters. I just wish the story hadn't been told from the perspective of like all of them. After that, I read the arc for She's a Doll by Barbara Truelove, and I freaking loved this book. I was very skeptical going into it. It is written first person from the perspective of a doll that's being possessed by the soul of a woman who was murdered. And that sounds crazy, and it was, but it was written so freaking well. This author somehow pulled that off, and I don't know how, but she did, and it actually like tugged at my heartstrings at points. It was deep and meaningful, very existential at times. It actually had a lot more depth and meaning and philosophical points, I guess, than I was expecting, and a lot less gory horror. I honestly thought this was gonna be potentially a gore fest. I was hoping not, because that's not my favorite kind of read, but I was bracing myself for it, and I was pleasantly surprised. It was not at all gory or disgusting. I could easily see people reading this who would like to get into horror but also don't like gore. This is a very good one for that. It started off with the main character being alive and showing how she was killed and then comes to possess a doll. And then it kind of escalates from there. That's all I really want to say though. I don't want to spoil this for anybody. I will also say that there was a lot of different Easter eggs for like different pop culture references and stuff. A lot of Lord of the Rings references. I think there was some Star Wars ones in there too. And probably more that either I didn't catch or I am forgetting right now, but I was really excited about the Lord of the Rings references for sure. Such a good read though, and obviously 5 stars. I can for sure see myself reading this one again, and also looking into other things that Barbara Truelove may have written, because if she can pull a crazy plot like this off, I'm convinced that woman can write anything. And then the last book I read in March was another arc called All Her Lies by Matt McGregor. This one was also a thriller that was very fast-paced and high stakes. I did have a couple of issues for it though. First, it was written from the perspective of a woman, but the author is a man, and you could just tell at some points that it was a man writing from a woman's perspective, especially because the main character was supposed to be in her late 20s and had life experience, but the things she would think and do just didn't add up to that. I could understand if she would have been like a 17 or 18-year-old maybe, but not like a grown-ass woman. There were just some scenarios in this story that I could not get past because I don't know a single woman who would have acted or thought in the way that this character did. And I think the only reason why she was written this way was because it was written by a man. I will also say that it was really fast-paced, which I enjoyed. Obviously, you really want that in a thriller, but the timeline itself within the story felt like it was too fast. There should have been a little bit more time progressing between certain events just to help with the believability of relationship growth and character development, all that kind of stuff. There was a few things that took place within the span of 4 days that really, in my opinion, would have been more believable had they taken place over the span of maybe 4 weeks or so. I don't know. It was just a little too quick for my liking and made it a lot less believable. And when you're going for a thriller like this one that is set in the real world, I think believability is very, very important. But all of that being said, I did rate it 4 stars because I loved the ending, and I am very glad that I ended up persevering through the things that irked me to get to the end, because it was an amazing ending. And I would love to also look into more books by Matt McGregor. I know he has about 3 or 4 that he's already written that are published that I would definitely be interested in giving a go. I'm just hoping that maybe he's not always writing from the perspective of a woman. But anyway, that is what I read in March. I had an amazing time. I always love reading arcs. And I loved the fact too that I read so many different things: physical novels, ebooks, audiobooks, and a graphic novel. It felt very diverse and kept it interesting, which is always so much fun. But I think with that, I am gonna leave this one here. I hope you have a great rest of your week and happy reading.